What's up? I've tried to film this video literally 10 times, so if I seem a little drawn and irritated and irritable, that is why. I had one slow motion stress tear trickle down my face. Hi everyone, it's Kendall here. If you're new around here, welcome. If you're not new around here, what is up? Home skillet biscuit, and happy Saturday. Best day of the week, honestly, because it's movie night. It's movie night. I don't know what that was. Okay, that was cute. It means it's bad movies and a beat day. The series on my channel where I talk about bad movies while putting on my makeup. And shout outs, because this week we actually have a little sponsor shout out to Drop for sponsoring today's video. If you don't know what Drop is, it is basically an app that allows you to rack up points that can be redeemed for gift cards when you go shopping. So basically you're getting rewarded to shop when you go shopping. All you have to do is download the Drop app and then go to it and shop through the app. Just search for your favorite stores, and anything that you buy through that particular transaction will be added to points that can be redeemed for gift cards to all types of places. Ulta, Sephora, Domino's, Starbucks. I even saw AMC on there, so I can, if I ever have another bad movie I want to see, I don't have to spend my own coin to see it. So yeah, all you have to do is use the app that way, and or you can hook up a credit card, and just any transaction from eligible stores will be added into your Drop points. We are also hosting a little giveaway. So for everyone that downloads the app and connect a card, they will be entered into a raffle where 100 people will get gift cards ranging from $5 to $25. All you have to do is download the app, put a card on it, and you're automatically entered. Or when you download the app, you could also just put in my code Kennie, and you'll also be entered into the giveaway that way. That giveaway is going to be until November 26th, so a month. Yeah, I hope you guys have fun. So if you want to check out Drop, be sure to check it out down in the description box. Big thanks to Drop for sponsoring today's video, and let's get on to this week's mess. And that's what it is, sis. It's a mess. So last week, what did we talk about last week? Last week we talked about After, the movie that teaches teenage girls that all of your problems can be solved with a penis. This week, we're going back to the spooky yuki side of things. Well, more so than spooky, I would call it more of a thriller. I would call it a comedy, actually, but intended to be a thriller. Today, we are talking about another cult classic film. Another It's So Bad It's Good. Today, we are talking about the 2010 independent cult classic that is referred to as, quote, a romantic thriller, strange bedfellows, called Birdemic. Where do I even how do I put this? It is actually the worst movie I've ever seen. And I said this back when we saw The Room together. For those of you that have been watching these bad movies in a beat, that was my, I believe, the second episode, and has since become the benchmark for all bad movies when they're bad, just so bad. Like, I've tried to make as many people as I know personally actually watch that movie. They can be in complete and utter disbelief as I am. The creator of this movie did the impossible and made a movie that is actually worse. That's a talent. It's one thing to make a bad movie on purpose, right? But to get a movie like this to be made in this very particular horrible way, it takes some delusion. Like, you need to be very delusional, very passionate, very little money, and or very little skill. And that is essentially what Birdemic was. As hilarious as it is not a joke to writer, director, producer James Nguyen. I'm sorry, I've never been able to pronounce that last name. I've looked up so many pronunciation videos for it, and when they say it wrong and when they say it right, can't tell the difference. So I'm just gonna call him James. James is our director, and he's been interviewed, you know, largely asking, was the movie a joke? Like, it's so bad that you can't believe that someone sincerely did the movie. But James says it's a serious movie with a very serious message.
It's supposed to be a very serious romantic thriller.
As James has so proudly proclaimed, Birdemic is a romantic thriller. And when you watch the movie, you swiftly come to realize that when he said romantic thriller, he didn't mean that it was a thriller with romantic elements. Two people during these thrilling situations end up falling in love and try to survive. Actually, the first half of the movie is just a really bad love story, just a really awkward, crudely made love story. And the second half is like a horror when animals attack, apocalyptic bird versus human revenge film. And then to sew those two very far-reaching ideas together. We have some very ham-fisted environmental activism. It's a mess. Now the movie begins, and it really does set the tone for the film in the sense that this opening scene, this opening credit scene is 4 minutes. This movie is really big on long drawn out scenes, or like scenes that last uncomfortably longer than they need to. Just that hair too long, just that 2 seconds too long for it to make sense. And it drags on for what feels like literally forever. It is so long that the eerie intro song played 5 times. I counted 5 times. And between the first and second time, there's this really long, awkward pause. Eventually, we finally meet Rod, who is our main male character, right? Rod is a software salesman that lives in Silicon Valley. In our first scene, we meet Rod, we see Rod as he's like walking to a diner. My first thought was, why he look like a simp? Like his very robotic movements and expressionless face. He's giving me like a lot of human simulator tease, if you will. And it was very uncomfortable and disorienting. Ooh, wait a second. Have y'all ever played Heavy Rain? Like his movements, why every movement like a 3-point turn. We get the first lines of the movie at this restaurant. Do I even want to try to? I'm gonna just play it. Enjoy.
Hi. Hi.
Here is the menu.
Thank you.
I'll be right back with you.
I refuse to believe that these people aren't being held hostage. The movie has a lot wrong with it technically, okay? The audio's horrible. The audio stops. It's very obvious that no one called like quiet on the set because you hear different background noises based off of like what frame you're looking at, like what scene they're doing, like whose perspective it's being shot from. My suspicion is that they were just shooting while in an actual diner, like while they had business hours. At the restaurant, Rod is reunited with Natalie, who is a lingerie model and also a former high school classmate of Rod. They strike up a conversation outside of the restaurant, and it's awkward. Rod is like, where are you from?
So are you from here?
Not really. My mother lives up here, but I'm from San Francisco. What about you?
San Jose.
Which is kind of a weird question given the context, right? If they went to high school together, like wouldn't you assume she's from wherever you're from in this context, which is a question you ask someone that you've never met before, you know what I mean? It's so weird. And I started to suspect that this had more to do with kind of awkward English that sometimes James, the director, has. In preparation for this video, I just had to know more about this James guy, and I ended up watching a whole Vice interview with him. And the actors that were on set said that they would tell him, that doesn't really make sense. That's very awkward given the context and given the English in this scene. It doesn't really make sense. But James is a visionary and refused to change any of the lines, even the ones that were very, very awkward. And so because of that, we get gems like this. I'm sorry, I'm overthinking this, but this really does set the tone. The entire movie has a weird, I think I know what you're talking about, but I'm not sure I do type thing. Anyway, they end up exchanging numbers, and so begins the romance part of this romantic thriller. Like I said, this movie is really big on scenes that last uncomfortably and awkwardly long. Rod is watching her walk away, and this scene seems to drag on forever. Consistent theme throughout the movie, and that is environmental activism. I was gonna say undertones, but undertones would be more subtle than this. It's just it's like very, the polar bears are dying, electric cars, which is fine, but the way that it is presented is so awkward and unnatural.
Chicks love cars. If you want to get into their pants, you better have a nice, hot Ferrari.
She's my hot Ferrari. Besides, I love my Mustang, which is a plug-in hybrid.
But because this movie is so bad, it completely takes focus away from that message, so we don't care. It ends up just being, this movie is horrible, and why is this in here?
But there is scientific evidence to show that because of our burning of fossil fuels and greenhouse gases, which is causing global warming, it's raising the temperature of the seas, and species like the krill are dying. So many bird species can't find food, like the nutrient squirrels. So they eventually starve and die, wash up on the shore. It's also evidence of global warming interrupting the birth, mating, and migration cycles of many species. In fact, in the last few years, 40 species become extinct because of global warming.
The valid message gets lost in nothing but tomfoolery. So it sounds like comedy instead of like a serious issue. It also sounds like someone's just reading a Wikipedia page. Honestly, the next scene where he's just driving home, I just wanted to keep in because it proves my point. Oh God, tell me this don't sound like the music that be in the loading screen for Sims. Anyway, the next day, Natalie and Rod have very good days at their jobs respectively. They end up talking on the phone and sharing their respective good news. And again, super long and unnatural conversations that have too long of pauses in between each person talking.
I closed a big job offer today with Victoria's Secret.
Wow, congratulations. I think you'll look great in those lingerie.
Thanks.
So how about dinner to celebrate your success?
They decide to meet up and they have literally the most boring conversation I've ever seen in film ever. They talk about stocks and software. It takes up a good chunk of this scene.
I work at a startup company called NCT Software. Got this stock option. Hopefully, if the company makes it big by being bought out or goes public, I'll exercise that stock option, cash out, and walk away with tons of cash. My Silicon Valley dream.
So after their date, we see them like walking down the street and they see like a family of birds, CGI birds. And low-key, this movie needs to come with a choking hazard. I was drinking milk, almost died. Like, I had heard that the CGI was awful, but I had not seen anything. I had not watched anything. But yeah, they look like moving Lisa Frank stickers. Now, apparently the CGI was supposed to be done by some kid fresh out of college that James knew, the director knew, but he didn't end up doing it for whatever reason. My suspicion is that he realized, oh my God, this is garbage and I don't want this to be my first job out of college. Like, no one will ever take me seriously, but I don't know that for sure. I'm just assuming. So what happened is James did it himself, copy and pasted 2.5D birds on each scene. I'm gonna just skip ahead a lot of these scenes because they're kind of pointless. So do. Ooh, the next scene is also a classic because they are acquired for $1 billion, Rod's company. Remember when I said they do scenes just a little too long for it to be comfortable?
For $1 billion. Brilliant.
This was the funniest scene to me. They laughed for so long that they had to end parts and start it over again. Rod and Natalie are on the beach and for some reason she sees a dead bird and thinks that it's a good idea to touch it. What is she, a basset hound? And this is our first hint that there are birds that are going through some stuff because they look infectious as told by Rod, right? And he's like, wow, what is wrong with that bird? That's creepy. Foreshadowing. Can you say literary prowess? Honestly, this whole first 45 minutes of the movie is them going on dates because that sounds incredibly interesting, doesn't it? They go to a restaurant and this random black dude is singing like family reunion songs. Hang out with the family. And they just dance into it for what feels like, again, an eternity. What is it with really bad movies and playing the entirety of songs? What is that? I presume it's because like they're friends of the makers. We're feeding two delusional dreams at once, you know, 2 for 1, 2 for. Did I ever tell y'all about Papa Duke and the Mud People? I swear this has a point. A few years ago, my dad told me one of his many life stories in which he knew a local celebrity or knew of local celebrities down in Louisiana during the 60s and 70s. And they referred to themselves as Papa Duke and the Mud People. It was a black dude and like 3 other people that would live together naked in a teepee. Is mud people a racial slur? It sounds like one. Something tells me that is. It was the 60s and 70s. It was a different time. Anyway, I say all that to say, he looks like what I imagine Papa Duke looked like. Can you see it? Can you see the glitter? Okay. Anyway, after this particular outing, Rod and Natalie go back to her place, which is obviously a motel room, but it's supposed to be her apartment, and have the sex. Good old footsie sex. Did not need to see that. That was gross. And with the sex, almost symbolically, ends the romance of this movie. That's the end of it. That's the romance movie. We're done. Enjoying this so far? I know, it's great. Because the second half is the part that we've all been waiting for. The next day is the bird apocalypse. The birds are attacking. It's the funniest shit I've seen. The thing that was making me lose my ever-loving mind is that the kamikaze birds were actually causing an explosion. That was tripping me out. Because what about the birds make them flammable? like what did they eat before they decided to just pack it in? A C4 brick? Like, they're flying into buildings and causing incredibly large amounts of damage. The birds are causing havoc. They're causing mayhem. And our couple is awoken by a bunch of very pissed off eagles and falcons right outside their apartment door. And they like freak out, which didn't really make sense to me because as far as they know, it's just very annoying birds. They haven't like seen the news and there's no explosions. Nothing's on fire near them. So I don't know why they just assume that these annoying birds are dangerous, but they do. And they go to such an extent that they barricade the door with her bed and her mattress, as opposed to just going outside and shooing. Once the birds eventually calm down, they decide to go outside and find help, and they go next door to meet this couple.
Name's Rod.
Ramsey.
This is Natalie.
Nice to meet you. Girlfriend Becky.
Hi.
Becky way too chill about this situation. Everybody else was just panicking and she's like, hi. And so they end up teaming up together to survive, basically, and they all go out defending themselves with wire hangers. Can you imagine being an actor on set for this? Man, I'm finally making my big break. I'm gonna be the main person in a movie. You say, screw this Starbucks job, I'm gonna be a star. And you and you get there and this is what you make. Eventually they are able to get into the car, where we swiftly discover that this new couple is a little too prepared for this. They are strapped. They have a semi-automatic weapon, a pistol. No, that's not a good excuse either. I was gonna say, later we find out that the guy was a part of the military or something, but that still does not explain why you so strapped, my guy. Me personally, even in the apocalypse, I'd be like, I'm gonna take these guns, but I don't. Also, they're in a stereotypical creeper van. They eventually pull over to the side of the road and end up saving two very annoying ass kids. I feel as though the other people have kind of gotten over their whole like I'm a simulation thing, but these kids just haven't. And they just kind of sound like children that you save in like Final Fantasy, and they like thank you in a cutscene.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, mister. Anyway, they're driving as a ragtag crew, and the driving music sounds like they're on the road to Guadalajara. If you haven't played Final Fantasy X, you're not gonna get that joke. It's a good one. Anyway, Becky dies while taking a poop, and they are distraught and concerned and scared, I guess, but not enough to actually roll up their friggin' windows on the way out. They keep those windows open the entire movie as if birds can't just fly through the frickin' window. You'll notice that this is a reoccurring thing. They always trying to save somebody and it just doesn't go as planned. Mostly end up dead every time. Maybe you should just stop trying to help people is the moral of the story. Maybe. I don't know. They try to help these people that are trapped in a bus that is surrounded by the birds. They try to help them by shooting at glass with bullets, and yet no one thought to duck or move away from the window because this movie is garbage. Anyway, they get the civilians off the bus, but they are swiftly, I don't know, thrown up on? Is that what this is? Acid? Because they started being like, oh my god, my eyes. Like, is it just because you got throw up in your eyes, or is it acidic or something? I don't know. But they also die as a result of a bird attack. And now the only ones left are those annoying ass kids and Rod, Natalie. So this next part really got me riled up because they end up stopping at a gas station to pick up gas. And because everyone's in such, you know, despair because of this bird attack, it costs an arm and a leg to get gas. It's $100 a gallon for gas. But Rod pays it because they really need it, you know, to survive, to get out of there. And while filling his gas tank, they end up getting attacked by more birds, so they have to rush out, right? Once they get away and they're to safety, they meet another guy who's stranded on the road, needs help, so they stop and help him too. And he asks for gas, and they say that they don't have any to give him. He ends up pulling a gun out on them and saying, "Give me your gas. Okay, chill out. I have some gas in the trunk. What did you stop for gas for if you already had gas in the trunk? As far as we know, you did not fill up a red canister at the gas station. Why? Because it was too expensive. You're telling me that you already had a red canister of gas before you stopped at the gas station. Every Capricorn logic bone in my body is screaming. But it gets worse. It gets worse. Because the guy steals the canister of gas, but he doesn't get very far because he soon gets killed by the birds. And though swiftly after that, there's no sign that the birds returned, does Rod pick up the gas canister that is right maybe 5 feet in front of him? No, he does not. Okay, fast forward. This sounds like Chocobo music. Third Final Fantasy reference I've made in this video. If you haven't played Final Fantasy, all of these are gonna fall flat, and that just makes me so sad. Okay, I'm gonna fast forward. More people dying that weren't important to the story. The annoying kids and our couple goes to the beach and goes fishing and decides to eat fish and seaweed that they're gonna cook on the beach in a hot pot. I clocked that. I'm not saying that white people can't own a hot pot. I'm just saying I've never met one that does. And they got the double one that's split in half when you got 2 soup bases. Shout out to Little Lamb, New York. Delicious. Highly recommend it if you're in the area. Anyway, while they're on the beach, the birds attack. They rush to their car and they're just stranded in the car. They're like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? Rod is defending himself with like a hanger or something. And Natalie defends herself with a red gas canister. There's some movies that I feel like were made specifically to tick me off. This is one of those movies. Anyway, the movie ends when a singular bird crashes into their windshield and dies. Does not explode, by the way. Suddenly, the birds just stop attacking. Nothing happened to make them stop attacking. Decide that's enough now, and they go back to wherever they came from. There was no other thing that stopped them. No one stopped being horrible to the planet, if that was the idea. Like, people are so bad to the planet that these birds went crazy. No one changed anything about the planet. They just stopped. I want reparations for my time. I watched that whole movie and was like, I have never been... Usually when I watch bad movies, I'm like, man, that was still entertaining. I was just angry. The makeshift family goes out and watches as the birds return to from wherever they came from. And Natalie hits us with the very impactful but barely audible line. 90% sure they didn't have a boom mic. They then commence to look out across the sea for the entirety of the credits. And that made me laugh. Can you imagine being these people? Imagine the final scene and they're like, just keep looking out for a very, very long time. You're gonna keep looking out during the entirety of these credits because we need people to sit there with the thought of why did they stop attacking? Now, after watching this movie, I couldn't help but become more curious about James, our director, because I just gotta know. I just have to know how we got here. And so I ended up, again, like I said before, on that Vice interview. The story behind how Birdemic became a cult classic is simply that James had entered his film to Sundance in 2009 and was sorely rejected, and he decided to promote his movie Birdemic. He got a van that looks suspiciously like the van that was in the movie, went down the streets in front of Sundance, passing out flyers to see his movie. The van was covered in blood. He had a stuffed bird on his windshield and a misspelled sign of his own movie. At first, a lot of people thought he was an animal rights protester because, like, look at him. But he was actually promoting his film. One of the people to show up at the initial viewing of the film was actually a documentary director that decided, I need to make a documentary about this man who made this truly horrible movie. And it became a hit. It became a cult classic, got notoriety for being so bad. And you can't help but feel kind of bad for James, because you could tell that his motivations for making the movie were sincere. He was really concerned about human impact on the environment, but no one cares because your movie sucks. With that said, at one point there was actually a sequel to Birdemic made that was not nearly as well received. It didn't have that same sincerity. It was like bad on purpose. You know, people didn't like it as much because it wasn't like bad on accident the way it was supposed to be. If I'm not mistaken, there was also talks for a Birdemic 3, but from what I understand, they never got the ball rolling on that one, thank God. And yeah, that's it. That's the story of James sorry, and Birdemic. It gave me cramps. If you like this video, be sure to like this video. Follow me on all my social media, Instagram and Twitter, both of which are KennieJD. If you haven't seen the other videos in our Bad Movies and a Beat show here, that'll be linked up above in the Bad Movies and a Beat playlist. Big thanks again to Drop for sponsoring today's video, and I will see you guys next time.